In this episode, we talk about Jammu and Kashmir's Kishtwar district, where a sudden cloudburst triggered flash floods, leaving many dead and missing. We also discuss a draft policy for elderly people in Kerala, proposing new institutions and budgetary commitments to address the challenges of an aging population. But we begin today with India's military academies, where hundreds of cadets over the years have been forced to leave their training after sustaining life-altering disabilities. Hi, I'm Ichha Sharma, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. Every year, hundreds of aspiring young individuals join India's top military institutions like the National Defence Academy and the Indian Military Academy, hoping for a successful career in the armed forces and a life dedicated to defending the nation. During their time there, cadets undergo rigorous training in military tactics, weapon handling and leadership, along with a well-rounded academic education. But over the years, many have been medically discharged from these institutes due to disabilities they sustained during the training there. And since 1985, there have been around 500 such cases. In a recent series for the Indian Express, Amrita Nayak Dutta spoke to 5 of them.
As part of the series that we have just done, we interviewed 5 former cadets. All of them were bright students, were good in sports, were really bright teenagers who joined the military academies when they were pretty young and with the dreams of becoming army officers or fighter pilots. And because of an unfortunate turn of events, as you know, military training is pretty rigorous. They suffered disabilities, and I must emphasize here, severe disabilities during an unfortunate turn of events during their military training, and because of which they had to be medically discharged from the academies before they could become an officer, before they could realize their dreams.
The 5 cadets that she spoke for the story were Shubham Gupta, Harish Sinha, Kartik Sharma, Vikrant Raj, and Kishan Kulkarni, who is now fully dependent on his mother for his most basic needs.
Now, most of them suffer from very, very severe disabilities like paraplegia, where they're wheelchair bound because of spinal cord injuries that they had suffered during military trainings like diving and all. And I have also spoken to other people who are not paraplegic but have suffered brain damage, severe brain damage. There are people who struggle with their daily basic tasks like speaking. They have slurred speech, they have memory loss. So all of these guys who were really bright and they wanted to become military officers, they signed up for it, but they could not make it because they suffered this lifelong disabilities. And all of them, most of them I spoke to are 100% disabled.
Take Vikrant Raj, for example. Amrita says that he might have gone on to become a 5th-generation military officer had he not suffered a head injury that caused a brain hemorrhage and left him in a coma for 6 months.
So he was a very bright student. He had all the officer-like qualities, his mother tells me. He was really good in multiple sports. So he was very good. Basically, he was an all-rounder. That's what his mother Suman tells me. So he suffered a head injury during a boxing bout. But despite suffering the head injury, he was so motivated. He was so full of josh to perform for his squadron that he participated, despite everybody telling him not to do so. He participated in a very rigorous camp after that. And he also took part in a football match in the same year. And very unfortunately, the football hit him in his head at the same spot where he suffered an injury during the boxing, which completely, left him in coma for 6 months. So right now he is improving. His mother tells me that he is able to do a lot of things, but his speech still remains slurred and he needs help with every basic thing, like for example, walking to a certain distance, doing his daily basic chores. So he needs help with that. Yet, even today when he sees a speech on army or the military, so he still asks his mother whether I can join it.
She also says that in the case of Kishan Kulkarni, who we mentioned earlier, he suffered a heart attack and brain damage while he was in the NDA.
We don't know how it happened. Even his mother, Bharti, could not tell me how exactly it happened. But his medical records show that it was attributable to military training, which at India is considered pretty rigorous. So he's completely bedridden now. His mother has to do everything for him. He's not able to speak. He's in a very difficult shape. And his mother told me that his brain has also suffered a lot of damage. His nerves have degenerated. We spoke to Shubham and Karthik, who are wheelchair bound. They suffer from paraplegia, but they have found some interest or the other to keep them going. Like, for example, Karthik is preparing for some exams. He did his political science after getting medically discharged, and Shubham has been interested in stock markets and astrology. So they have found their interest in somewhere. And then we have Harish Simmer, who got mooted out many years ago in 2007. He says that he has lost the will to live and he suffers from severe memory loss. So he fails to remember a lot of things, which is very important in his daily life. And sometimes he says his body is pretty weak. His hands are weak. He has a problem with his eyesight as well. So yes, varying degrees of disabilities and all of them severe and lifelong.
To know more about the challenges these cadets face and what they have been demanding from the government, my colleague Niharika Nanda speaks to Amrita in this segment.
Amrita, how often do cases like these come up at military training academies?
So far, as per official records, there are 500 such cases, which is not too many, since 1985 till date. And if we look at the last 5 years, what I get to know is, about 20 cases in the last 5 years in NDA alone. So not too many, but yes, there are cases like this.
And earlier you spoke about some of the challenges these cadets face. What did their families have to say when you spoke to them? And what are their demands?
So surely it is a very distressing thing for their families because they have seen their bright kids grow up, with dreams in their eyes and also make it to the premium military training academy like the NDA. They joined this service, and not only it is very distressing for them because not only do they see that their children could not realize their dream, their long-standing dream of becoming officers in the military, but also suffering from lifelong disabilities. So it is a very distressing thing for them. And most of these cadets who I spoke to are completely dependent on their families and their attendants to take care of them because they suffer from such disabilities that they find it difficult to carry on even with their basic tasks like walking or like speaking. Now, when you ask me about their demands, their long-standing demands have been to get a disability pension and an ex-serviceman status. Now, before I delve into what a disability pension and an ex-serviceman status would mean for them, I want to say that currently they receive a monthly ex gratia amount. Now, a monthly ex gratia amount that they receive currently, most of them told me that it is very meager and it is just not adequate to meet their medical expenditure. Forget the rest of the things that a cadet would need to go on with their daily life. So all they get a monthly ex gratia, which is not sufficient to meet their medical expenditure requirements because a medical expenditure requires your medicines, your attendance, most importantly, your physiotherapy. These are critical for people who suffer from paraplegia and other disabilities. So this is what they get currently, but their long-standing demand has been to get a disability pension and a ex-serviceman status. A disability pension would give them a life of dignity, and an ex-serviceman status would offer them various facilities such as entitlement to the ECHS scheme, an ex-serviceman contributory welfare scheme that would help them get free medical treatments at various hospitals, empaneled private hospitals and military hospitals. And also an ex-serviceman status would help them get resettlement opportunities. So somebody who could not become an officer in the military will get this opportunity to have a job elsewhere. So this gives them resettlement opportunities. So their primary demand has been to get an ex-serviceman status and a disability pension. Right now, they get this meager a monthly ex gratia amount.
And Amrita, can you tell us a bit about just how much ex gratia do they get right now and the kind of medical expenses these cadets incur?
Well, Niharika, I must tell you that this ex gratia amount is maximum Rupees 40,000 for cadets who are 100% disabled, and this amount goes down as the disability percentage goes down. And the medical expenses vary from cadet to cadet. Somebody who suffered a very high degree of disability would obviously have more medical requirements, more medical expenditure, particularly on physiotherapy and medicines. And for them with a lower degree of disability, it would be slightly less. But even then, people I spoke to, they have said their medical expenditure vary from 40,000 to 95,000. But even if you look at someone whose medical expenses is 40,000 a month, so all their ex gratia that they're getting goes in medical expenses only. So where is the rest of the amount that they have to lead a life of dignity, right?
And Amrita, you also had the opportunity to talk to some senior army officers about this. What did they have to say?
So, Niharika, I did speak to a senior Air Force officer as well as former Army Chief General Naravne and former Navy Chief who was also the NDA Commandant at one point of time, Admiral Arun Prakash. They did tell me about how better safety should be ensured for these cadets and how the government should ideally absorb the cost which is needed to take care of these cadets, given that they had given their precious years as a young cadet to military training. But while they also cautioned that it should be seen that there is no kind of misuse, there's not any misuse by anyone. But at the same time, they maintained that yes, it's very important to take care of cadets who suffer from disabilities like this.
Right. And Amrita, these people set out to train and serve the nation. Yet we now see them in such a heartbreaking state. Talk about the concerns this raises, and also could this end up discouraging young people who aspire to join the military?
Absolutely, Niharika. So this is precisely what a proposal that was made last year by the Defense Ministry had noted. The proposal mentioned that this kind of things would discourage cadets, young people, to join the military if the government does not take adequate care of them. Because you see, they're suffering from both sides, right? One, they could not realize their dream of becoming an officer in the military, something that they had harbored for a very long time. And secondly, they are being left disabled for life.
And talking about that, can you tell us what the proposal made by the Defense Ministry was and what is its current status?
So, Niharika, last year there was a meeting with Defense Minister Rajnath Singh and senior officers of the military and the Defense Ministry, where a proposal was mooted to increase this ex gratia amount. How? Let me explain. The ex gratia amount that these cadets are currently given, it's pretty much similar like the disability pension that military officers get. It has two components, the ex gratia amount. One is the service component and one is the disability component. Now, while the disability component is 30% of the stipend that these cadets get in their fourth year, the service component, which should also be linked to this stipend, is not linked to it. Instead, it is linked to the lowest basic salary of a central government employee, which comes to rupees 18,000. So the proposal that was mooted last year, it was approved by Defense Minister Rajnath Singh. That proposal corrected this anomaly. It basically said that while 30% of the stipend is already there in the calculation of the ex gratia, the monthly ex gratia, the 50% should also be linked to the stipend. So basically it should be 50% of the stipend and 30% of the stipend. And it should not be 50% of the lowest basic pay of a central government employee. And as cadets tell me, as Mr. Ankur Chaturvedi, who's a corporate professional and who has been fighting for the case of this cadets, he himself is a former cadet of NDA. He told me that when this happens, when this proposal is implemented, it will naturally increase the ex gratia amount for the cadets, while also this marks the first step in their fight for a bigger cause. So even then, the proposal is lying somewhere between Defense and Finance Ministry. So it's been more than a year since it was approved, but it is yet to see the light of day.
Shortly after this recording, the Supreme Court has taken suo motu cognizance of these reports. A bench of Justices B.V. Nagarathna and R. Mahadevan is scheduled to hear the matter on 18th of August. Sources in the judiciary said Justice Nagarathna took note of the Indian Express's reports and placed them before Chief Justice of India, B.R. Gavai, who directed that the matter be heard by her bench. Next, we shift our focus to Jammu and Kashmir, where rescue efforts are still underway. After flash floods in Uttarakhand's Uttarkashi left at least 4 dead, a similar tragedy struck in the Kishtwar district of Jammu and Kashmir, where a sudden cloudburst triggered flash floods along the Mashal Yatra route last week.
Actually, Mashal Mata Yatra, it takes place in Kishtwar district.
This is the Indian Express's Arun Sharma, who reported on the story for the paper.
People from the plains of Jammu, like Jammu, Samba, Kathua, and even Udhampur and Riyasi district, they go every year to Pada in Kishtwar to pay offerings at a temple of Kali goddess, Kali Mata. which is situated at an altitude of 2,880 meters. And this yatra coincides with the Amarnath yatra in South Kashmir, Himalayas, but it starts a bit late. When Amarnath yatra is going to end, it starts. And this time, it started on July 25th, and it was to end on September 8 or 9. Thousands of people, they participate. No people from neighboring Punjab had also this time had come. May not be in good numbers, but they have started coming because it is a picturesque area, high mountains, lush green meadows, streams. The people had started coming to the area from outside the UT as well.
He tells us that hundreds of pilgrims had gathered on the mountain path and at makeshift langars when surging waters and debris swept through, destroying tents, bridges, and shops. At least 65 people are feared dead or missing, and many others have been injured. To understand what happened that morning and how rescue and medical efforts unfolded, we speak with Arun in this segment. Arun, could you start by talking about what exactly happened in Kishtwar that day?
What happened, this Machel Yatra, it was emerging as the third largest pilgrimage in Jammu region after Amarnath and Shri Mata Vaishno Devi Shrine. So this time, Kishtwar district administration had issued an advisory fixing 8,000 limit of yatris per day. Of them, 6,000 had to be registered online and plot for 2,000 was registered who come on the spot so that they can be registered offline. But registration to proceed to Machel Mata Yatra was mandatory. What happened on August 14? The eyewitnesses say that there were around 15,000 to 20,000 pilgrims there. Nearly 10,000, they were between Chishoti village where the cloudburst took place up to the track to the temple, the Machel Mata temple. That is a nearly 9-10 kilometer foot track. So there were nearly 10,000 people on that track. The people coming from Kishtwar side to way towards Machel Mata, an equal number of people were coming. Of them, 3,000 people they had gathered at Chishoti. Some had returned after darshan, someone proceeding towards the. Suddenly, around 12:30, they heard a huge big bang and a dust storm. And everything was covered under slush. Boulders came, uprooted trees came, and everything was washed away within minutes.
Right, and speaking about the impact, we know that even a CISF camp, which was established to monitor the inflow of pilgrims, was swept away. So, could you talk about the scale of the destruction?
Basically, let me explain you the geography of the area. From Kishtwar to Gulabgarh, it is a 2-lane road. From Gulabgarh to Chishoti, it is a narrow lane. So, pilgrims who come for pilgrimage, they have to park their vehicles at Gulabgarh. And from Gulabgarh, local people bring them on their own vehicles, like tempo travelers and this. And they park their vehicles at the site where cloudburst took place. It is roughly an area of 200 to 300 square meters. So 2,000 to 3,000 people were there, already there. It was jam-packed. Local people had set up makeshift shops also in view of the Mela because this pilgrimage was going to last for more than a month, maybe nearly 2 months because it was going to end in September. And the people who were running the local transport, they too had parked their vehicles in the ground. So when the cloudburst took place, people tried to run, but they could not run because there was already traffic jam in the area. They found little space to run. And nearly 200 to 300 people, they were sitting in a langar, a community kitchen, taking meals because it was 12:30 or so. And suddenly flood comes and they all get washed away. Nearby was a CISF camp. The camp was also directly hit and washed away. 1 or 2 people, they were on langar duty near the community kitchen. CISF people I am talking about. They too washed away. 1 or 2 CISF people, they were on the wooden bridge. Wooden bridge also got washed away, and the people who were standing on the wooden bridge, including the CISF jawans who were managing the crowd, they also washed away. There were 2 temples in the area. And after the floods, when situation got normal, there were only boulders, uprooted trees and slush all over, nothing visible except these 3 things. The vehicles, they were buried under the slush, bodies under the boulders. No, for the last 4 days, the rescue operation is going on, and they are trying to find out if they can find any survivors, for which there is little hope.
And given the situation, Arun, talk about the first aid that people received. Because you've also highlighted in your piece that hospitals had limited resources and that only 3 ambulances were available at that time, right?
Yes. What happened after the cloudburst, because the near CISF camp, which was set up to monitor the yatra, to monitor the Russia pilgrims, had got washed away. Except for locals and the injured, there was no one in the area. The help had to come either from Gulabgarh side or Kishtwar district, which is the district headquarters. Till before it came, it was the local people in the village who came forward, brought the dead bodies out of the slush, injured out of the slush, and rushed them to the hospital. There were only 3 ambulances at that time on the yatra duty. These ambulances were insufficient to cope up with the tragedy. So local people, they used their own vehicles to take the bodies and the injured to the hospital. The hospital in Padar, which is situated at Atholi, is a sub-district hospital. It had only 3 doctors there at that time, and nearly half a dozen paramedics, because the other 3 doctors, they were on yatra duty in Chishoti and Machel area. When they received the call that the bodies are coming, injured are coming because a cloudburst has hit the area, they called back the doctors. It is only a 20-bedded hospital. Over 100 people, they were rushed there. So they put the mattresses on the floor to see that no one goes unattended. And they had limited supply of medicine because it is a sub-district hospital and no one had imagined that such a tragedy would struck there. So the BMO, the block medical officer of Podar, he called the doctors and paramedics posted in periphery areas, asked them to come along with whatsoever medicine they have with them, so that initially they attend the patients and provide whatsoever medical aid they can, so that if there are critical patients, they will be rushed to the hospital, but before that, they are provided the first aid. Those with minor injuries, they were admitted there for 24 hours observation, provided first aid and discharge. In the meantime, help also came from Kishtwar, Dutta and Jammu as well, and things stabilized. But by the time help came, they had managed the problem.
Right, and as you mentioned that locals were the first to participate in the rescue efforts, and you also spoke to them during your reportage. So talk about what did they have to share about the incident?
Actually, no one had expected this tragedy because the yatra has been going on since long and everything was going on smoothly. Rather, this time, the road had been widened, the arrangements were good. The foot track from Tishoti up to Machel temple, it was well laid down. At some places, the work was going on. Another bridge was under construction. It was almost complete under the PMGSY, and it was going to open any time in next few days. So things were all normal. No one had expected it. It was all of a sudden that no one could find time to run. But yes, for them, it was a horrifying experience. Nearly 10 to 12 houses which were built on the Nala side by the locals, they also washed away. 9 families, they became roofless. Nearly a dozen local people have died. Those locals who got affected, they are staying with their relatives. Those administration also provided them the tents. They have organized langar and everything. And what is worth noticing is that people, irrespective of their political affiliations or religious lines, not only in Padar, but in Kishtwar, in nearby district like Dutta, they also joined the rescue operation, opened the doors of their houses for pilgrims because 10 to 15,000 pilgrims were stranded after the cloudburst. They offered them food. They provided their vehicles to take them out of the area, cloudburst area, to reach Gulabgarh and where they could get the SRTC buses or their own buses to return to their homes.
And lastly, Arun, talk about the current situation in Kishtwar. Like, how many people are still missing and how far along are the rescue efforts?
Yes, so far as nearly 65 people have died. Bodies are coming up. Only yesterday, 5 more bodies were recovered. Rescue operations are going on, but they are a bit slow because it is still raining at intermittent intervals, basically. Then when it rains, rescue operations get hampered, it. But they are going on. Situation is, I can't say normal, but it is not so bad at the moment because Army has moved in, SDRF and NDRF teams are there, police is there, civil administration is there, even local MLAs are there, opposition MLAs are there, politicians from various political parties are there, workers are there, local people are also there in the rescue operation. Everybody is trying to conclude these rescue operations at the earliest so that they find whosoever is missing. At the moment, nearly 65 people are dead, but nearly 100 people are reportedly missing. Their number may be more also, but this is the official figure, including the CISF Jawans. Their number is yet not known, that how many were there in the camp at that time. And many people, they are hospitalized at Kishtwar, in Dutta and in Jammu.
And in the end, we move to Kerala, where a new policy to empower the elderly population has been proposed. The state government has released a draft of its state policy for elder persons, outlining a comprehensive framework to address the challenges of an aging population. The draft comes 6 months after Kerala became the first state to launch the Senior Citizens Commission under the Kerala State Senior Citizens Commission Act of 2025. As reported by the Indian Express's Shaju Philip, Kerala had earlier introduced an elderly care policy in 2006, which was updated in 2013. The new draft seeks to update measures in light of the state's rapid demographic transition, with projections showing that people aged 60 and above will comprise 30% of the population by 2051, exceeding the child population by 2030. Once approved, an expert committee will prepare detailed action plans within 3 months of notification. It is guided by 14 principles, including zero tolerance for elder neglect, ensuring dignity, financial security, and mainstreaming aging concerns into governance. Philip reports that the key proposals include a dedicated professional cadre for elder care at the local government level and the establishment of 2 new bodies, a Vayojana Commission for regulatory oversight and a Vayojana Council for strategic recommendations. At the community level, elder neighborhood groups are proposed as platforms for peer support and participation. Local governments would also be required to prepare annual status reports on elderly persons and create individual care plans for vulnerable elders. The draft policy suggests a 5% allocation of the state budget for senior citizen welfare, with local governments mandated to spend 10% of their budgets on elderly initiatives. A cess on property taxes is proposed to fund these schemes. Philip further notes that among the proposed services are family-based and professional care options, affordable housing, elderly wards in public hospitals, and adult vaccination programs. It highlights gender disparities, noting that only 10% of elderly women are married compared to 20% of men, and proposes targeted financial literacy and property rights awareness programs. The draft further promotes research on aging, proposing a center of excellence in gerontology and device banks for assistive technology. You were listening to 3 Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by Niharika, Nanda and me, Ichha Sharma. If you like the show, do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast. You can also recommend it to someone you think may like it, with a friend or in your family. This is the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcast or write to us at podcast@indianexpress.com.